Hello, everybody. This is Elizabeth with Chasing Vegan Dreams, and I am making a video today to discuss my experience with Mirena and how it affected me, what it was like getting it put in, what it was like having it in, and what it was like to have it removed, and the things that I am experiencing now that it's been removed. So, when I first got it put in, it was 3 years ago, in June of 2013, and the process of putting it in was very painful. Um, if you're a guy or you are sensitive to imagery or graphic language, you probably shouldn't be watching this. Just a disclaimer right now. Um, it's about to get real. Having the Mirena inserted into my cervix or through my cervix and into my uterus was like having a pencil with sharp glass all over it shoved through my cervix. It was insanely painful. Um, it was very bad. It was a pain that was very isolated to one spot and very intense. And that's the best way that I can put it. A glass-covered pencil is what it feels like. Um, it goes in a tube. It's about this long, and it's about as wide as a pencil. And the Mirena is inserted inside of this tube, and then they put it up to your cervix, and then push the Mirena through, and seat it inside of your uterus. And when it's finished, they cut the strings to an approximate size. From what I've seen of other videos and what I've talked to my friends about who've had it, they said that their strings were fairly long, up to 2 inches, 3 inches long. My doctor made my strings very short. On the outside of my cervix, there was maybe just enough to like flick a nail against. I mean, it was very small. Otherwise, I would have taken it out myself a long time ago. My experience with Mirena was not good, and there was a lot of pain. For the first couple months, I bled almost consistently. I had horrible cramping as soon as it was placed and continued to feel that cramping for about a week. It was very bad to the point that I went back and was like, are you sure this thing hasn't migrated? Am I rejecting it? Is my body rejecting it? Blah, blah, blah. But they assured me that everything was fine and that this was, not common but normal, and I would be fine. And they advised me to take ibuprofen. So I did, and over the course of the next couple months, the bleeding was consistent, but the cramping did stop. During this time, about 2 weeks after I had it placed, I became sexually active. My partner couldn't feel it, but it did make sex painful. And I kind of brushed it off because I assumed that it was simply because maybe my cervix was still tender from that. And a little background on me. At the time, I was 23 or 24. I'm 27 now. I was 24 then. And so, oh no, I was 23 because it was in June and I was born in October. Okay, so anyway, I was 23 or 24, and I had never had a child. I never gave birth. No children as of yet. So it wasn't an easy placement necessarily. I know that the procedure is usually much easier on women who have had children simply because the cervix has been utilized in that fashion. So, but not the case so much with me. After a couple of months, I did notice other symptoms that started to be persistent as well. The worst of which was, well, there was actually maybe 2 or 3 that were really unfortunate. The first one was that every time I had to defecate, And for those of you who may not know what that means, it means every time I had to shit or poop, anytime I had to use my rectum, there was an insane pressure in my rectum from the IUD. I did not know what it was at first. I went to a doctor. I went to my general practitioner. They told me that it was nothing wrong in my rectum. It was simply pressure from the Mirena inside of my uterus. I went to my OBGYN. I told her I wanted to make sure that the Mirena was placed appropriately. They did the wand procedure, which is where they take a long wand and they put it up your vagina and they scan the uterus and the cervix to make sure that the Mirena is placed appropriately. It is possible for them to go through the cervix if they need to, but they did not do that procedure with me. They told me that the Mirena was indeed placed appropriately. It was not attached to anything and that I was fine and to not be concerned with it. And I was like, okay. So this persisted the entire time I was on Mirena. Every time I had to have a bowel movement, it was painful to do so. And many of you may say, well, if I had to deal with that, I definitely would have gotten rid of it. Well, for me, I didn't have insurance when I had it placed. It was a $2,000 procedure, and I was not about to just throw away $2,000 and say screw it. I mean, I was determined to get the life wear out of this mechanism for birth control. Also, I have polycystic ovarian syndrome, and this was supposed to be a means of treating it with progesterone therapy, which actually became worse. My polycystic ovarian syndrome became worse. My cysts actually grew to a larger size before rupturing. And if any of you have ever had polycystic ovarian syndrome, or if you've ever suffered from a cyst on your ovary, when they rupture, it's intense. It's intense. So, oh, I forgot to mention they had to dilate me in order to put the Mirena in. They gave me a pill, and it dilated me much the same way that a normal labor would. They used the same hormone, and so for a good 12 hours before I had the Mirena placed, I had to go through labor in order to dilate my cervix. It was lovely. Lots of back labor. I can see what my future pregnancies are going to be like. But anyway, a few months after that and everything, I was still suffering from cramping during my period times, and even just like random cramping for no reason, which I just associated with it, the Mirena aggravating the inside of my uterus. Spotting and bleeding at random intervals became less and less over time, and then for some reason, about a year ago, they started becoming like periods. Most women don't have periods on Mirena. I didn't for the first, 2.5 years that I was on it. It was just I would have random spotting, but not like a full blown period. And but then for some reason, I just started having periods. They didn't last very long, and I wouldn't necessarily call them painful for the most part. But they were fairly on schedule, and they were happening, so I wasn't that concerned about it. Mirena does not stop ovulation, so I wasn't that concerned. I did notice that, one of the second thing that was the most problematic thing for me was that anytime I did engage in sexual activity, I would have severe cramping afterwards, and like double over painful pain, which really made me not want to engage in those activities. And also my sexual desire was decreased significantly anyway, so I wasn't really in the mood. Also, I had horrible acne that I developed because of this. Um, Sorry, my screen died. I had horrible acne that developed because of it, and I had acne as a child when I was a teenager, but my face had cleared up and everything was fine. And as you can see, it's clearing up pretty well now. But during, having had Mirena, it got bad, especially in the beginning. It got really terrible, and then probably about a year into it, it started to calm down, and I only started breaking out during my menstruation cycle. So I thought, well, I can deal with this, but that was bad, and probably like one of the last worst things that was a part of this, aside from pain and all these things, was I was tired all the time. I could sleep for 14 hours and be exhausted. I was exhausted all the time. Couldn't sleep. It was terrible. It was honestly horrible. And I did gain weight. I did gain a significant amount of weight. When I first started Mirena, I was 205 pounds, so I wasn't small by any means in the beginning. I am 5'9". So I'm a tall girl, but I hold my weight well, so I wasn't that concerned about it. But I was about 205 pounds, 200 pounds when I first started it. Currently, I am 235 pounds. So I did gain 30 pounds on this. And before anybody says anything, I'm a vegan. Okay, and it's not to say that vegans can't gain weight or whatever, but I've been a vegan now consistently for about 8 months, and I'm still, up to today, I still am having a lot of trouble losing weight during the entire time I was on Mirena. I'll get to what has gone on since I got off of it and since I removed it or had it removed. So. Yeah, it was a painful thing. It did work for pregnancy purposes. It didn't do me any harm there. I never got pregnant. Didn't really ever have any pregnancy scares. I never thought I was pregnant. It never became embedded. And in that way, I was very thankful and great, happy about it. But did have a little bit of hair loss and stuff like that too, and headaches, but it is what it is. Finally decided I couldn't take it anymore, and went to my doctor about 3 days ago and had it removed. The removal procedure was so much easier than getting it put in. They literally just pull it right out. It was uncomfortable. There was a pinch, a slight cutting feeling, but it was very, very quick. I mean, less than a second. And I didn't experience any other sharp pains aside from that. There was a little bit of uterus cramping during that time. For about 4 or 5 hours afterwards, I had some pretty good cramping going on. I had taken some ibuprofen before I went in, so it wasn't that bad. That night, I slept amazingly. I slept like a rock, and I have been since then. Been sleeping very well, waking up within 6 or 7 hours and feeling fully rested. However, I'm still feeling tired during the day. At times, not all the time, but still feeling some fatigue in like the early afternoon, and I'm experiencing headaches, a little bit of a breakout, not too bad. There was a lot of blood when I had it removed, but that's not surprising. There is blood when you remove it. You are, ripping through the cervix. So there's going to be blood. Some women experience mild spotting. I experienced pretty heavy blood. Not scary blood, but enough that I was like, oh, well, that's a lot of blood. And then I called it okay, and I dealt with it. The bleeding lasted and is still happening now, but it's very, 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 very minute now. Just a slight pinkening when I wipe. It's almost over and finished, so there's no big deal. I am now pooping just fine. No problems defecating at this point. No pain at all, defecating at all. Thank you, God. I haven't been sexually active yet. My fiance is in the field, and I won't be seeing him for quite some time, so we'll find out when he gets home. But other than that, everything seems to be going pretty good. I know that there's a lot of women who say they have developed a hormone crash in relation to having the Mirena removed. At this point, I'm not showing any real signs of hormone crash aside from like breast tenderness. I have a fairly consistent headache, and like I said, I'm a little tired, but that's also in relation to my hormones trying to balance themselves and heal itself from having it removed. So, not too concerned about it. I know that they say give it a couple cycles and you should be back to normal. And, we'll see what happens from there. But I got to tell you, I am really happy that it is out. And to be completely frank and honest, I would not recommend this to any woman ever. It is the worst thing I have ever done to my body. And I'm a smoker. I know that there's some hypocrisy in there. But I've done some terrible things to my body before I decided to get right with my body. So it's kind of saying a lot. And yes, I did have a cyst rupture recently. So for me, this was not a effective way of treating polycystic ovarian disease. And in fact made it much worse. And I've heard that it actually has I've read that it is possible to develop ovarian cysts even if you have no prior history of them on this birth control. So yeah, if you have any other questions, just leave a comment below and I will try to answer them. And if you have any questions about anything else, go ahead and leave a comment, and I'll see what I can do about getting back to you. So, yeah. Thank you. Have a nice day, YouTube. Bye-bye.